Gather round, bad witches. My name is Jade, and welcome to my Bad Witch Emporium. I recently made a video on how to deconstruct religious trauma, and y'all really loved this video. I wanted to go more in depth on this subject because my last video was using my own personal experience as an example. However, I want to give you a few tips on how to do this in your own practice. I'm not a medical professional, okay? So keep this in mind. If you are in need of medical help in this certain regards, utilize the resources that you have, such as therapy. So just putting that out as a disclaimer, this does not substitute medical attention, okay? And I do recommend that if it's especially deeply stemmed trauma, to work with this in a professional setting because they have the tools to obviously bring you through this journey. They are trained to bring you through this journey. However, if you just want a few helpful tips on someone who has, also done deconstructing work, you can stay here and watch this video, okay? The first thing to understand is a lot of the tactics that we were brought up within are the same tactics that come from a place of control. That's why I use the word tactics. So in many religious settings, extremely religious settings, it is based off of the same cult-like ethics and values, right? A cult has, been studied that there are certain things they do to bring people within and to gain control over the masses, right? So one thing you can do is study the psychology, the scientific evidence and research behind this specific subject, because there are plenty of studies out there and plenty of evidence stating that there is a specific formula on how to control a mass, how to gain a following in a cult-like manner. And a lot of religions that are very, very extreme, they use those same tactics. And they do it in a place of control, and many times it's not about divinity necessarily. It's about having control of a narrative and of people's mind. This is a very human-based way of thinking. When we want control, we want that power, we want the resources, right? What can we do to leverage ourselves above the masses? It's to control. That's essentially what it is. So when you look at it as a place of they want to be in the upper hand, they want to have that one leg up, then it's easier to understand why they do what they do. Because a lot of times we question, we're like, well, dang, I thought you were supposed to be good and like a good organization, but you're doing these shady things, and it just doesn't make sense when you teach morals, but you're not living by that. And it's not because they believe the morals, it's because they just want to gain something from you, right? Whether that's power, fame, wealth, influence. These are very ego-based, driven ideas, mindsets, when it stems from the ego. And so we see this a lot in essentially anything, right? This could be, corporations, this could be how society works, how the patriarchy works, right? A lot of it is stemmed from a place of power, place of ego, right? So when we understand that's where things are stemming from, this can give us a broader picture as to why it is happening. And when you approach it in a manner of understanding, because we're going to be confused. especially in the beginning when you just kind of are breaking from this, you're almost going to feel like it's an identity crisis because you have been conditioned from the very beginning or from a very young age that this is how it is. This is life. This is how things are supposed to be and how they will be. And when you find that it's not, right, there's more to it than that, it can feel as if our own identity of ourselves is completely shattered. So having to work through this and rebuild what we know as ourselves can be something huge to work through. It's going to be confusing at first, but when you seek knowledge, logic, it helps a lot because when we are conditioned, right? Oh, this is going to happen if you do this, or this is going to be your life, right? They do it from a place of fear, of emotions, right? They're tapping into your emotions, your emotional state. And when we look at it from a logical perspective, or scientific, or a psychological perspective, it's taking that emotion out. And you're kind of able to separate for a moment, okay, this is what's happening. I'm feeling this because this is how they are presenting the information. So taking it in a more scientific manner, researched manner, psychological manner can also help. Working with the primordial beings or older gods, there's a lot to unpack, right? But we want to understand that they are much older than we ever knew, and they're very multifaceted, and a lot of times they are willing to help you work through these adversities, right? These challenges we face internally. So when we approach it from a spiritual perspective, right, working with spirits, entities, older gods, it can feel as if they might be mad at us or they are displeased with us, when in reality, most of the time they just want to help us grow and understand ourselves. And just knowing that can be so helpful in your journey. You can call upon, especially if you have a close working relationship with a specific spirit or entity, you can call upon them and say, hey, I have this thing I really need to unpack. And, we've built enough rapport with each other. I'm willing to unpack it with you. I'm graciously asking for your help in this regards, and they will do it. They will help. And sometimes that looks like journaling. It looks like being in the discomfort of what was and embracing a new reality with them, right? This is a lot of times we feel like, oh, if I do something wrong, this deity is going to be mad at me. And truthfully, many primordial beings, deities, gods, right? They're not concerned with if your offering is off. They want intention. It's not about the physical per se, but it's about the intention that is given. If you come to a certain deity with expectations for them to deliver something to you like fame, you come from a place of ego, right? Demanding that they do something that's different. When you come from a place of humility, curiosity, and just pure intention, they know. They're not going to just ruin your life because you are learning a lesson or an offering they didn't like as much. It's going to feel uncomfortable, right? Because when we were growing up, we were taught to fear divinity, to fear it. But That's not what they want. They don't want you to fear them. They want you to learn and grow and develop as a person, as a spiritual being, right? They want you to grow, to succeed, to achieve what you set out to do. And many times the deities we work with, they want us to win. And they're there for us when we fall short. They know. They're like, they're going to learn. It's okay. They're still there for you. It's not a, if you do this, I'm not going to be there for you. Now, there are some exceptions, obviously. For example, Santa Muerte. If you are a devotee of her and you one day just throw her out, say, I don't want to, be with you anymore, and throw her statue away and just reject her, right? There may be some consequences, right? Because you're purposely disrespecting her. And that's just one thing in the community people know. She is a lifelong devotion, right? If you just straight up reject her and say, well, yeah, I don't know her or whatever, like, screw her. Yeah, there are going to be consequences. But this is like a very rare occurrence, right? Honoring her for a lifetime could look like just simply being in her gratitude, right? That cup of water, keeping her statue or her little trinket, her rosary with you, things like that. But this is, like I said, a very rare situation, right? A lot of times we do see this when practitioners dive into paganism and they might start to work with certain deities and they just dip. Why do they do that? Because they weren't able to actually process what was going on within them. And a lot of the times, again, it's coming from a place of control, of fear, and even lack of accountability, right? There's also a sense of lack of accountability within these situations that we grow up in. Sometimes we're taught that it's like, God is punishing you, when in reality, you're kind of being a shithead and you're making poor life decisions. It's not that anyone is punishing you. It's that you're not doing the work to grow as a person, to better yourself. And when, practitioners jump into paganism or any sort of religion with another deity, they start to see that many times the deities just put a mirror up and they say, hey, this is what's going on. What are you going to do about it? They run. They don't like what they see. When they look in the mirror, they see that reflection. They don't know what to do with it. So this is the reason why also a lot of people might dip and go back to what they knew, go back to the religion they were raised in, because there was a sense of safety and comfort and lack of accountability. They don't have to take accountability for the poor decisions they have been making. I know that sounds crazy, but some people cannot handle the capacity to take accountability of the things they've done. Every decision that we make, every choice that we make, every second of our life, it adds up. It builds our life, and our life reflects that. It reflects the decisions that we make on a daily basis, but not everybody can handle that. So if you're going into, work with a new deity, you understand this and you're ready to put in that work and you're not scared to, see what you have to work on. This is not something you should be worried about if a deity is going to be upset with you. It's the times when people are being an absolute just turd about their practices, how they're treating people, how they treat themselves, not taking accountability, and living from a place of ego, right? someone's acting like they are better than or they don't need, right? That's also another thing. It's coming from a place of ego. And when you, again, approach these beings with humility, sincerity, you're not overstepping. And they're very, very understanding. They're very patient when it comes to working with you in these specific regards. So don't feel like, if you do something, they're going to punish you, when that's a huge narrative that has been taught to you from a very young age to control you, right? People that live in fear are controlled. So when you live in a place of curiosity, understanding, seeking knowledge, seeking these things, and approaching it in a very sincere way, you don't have anything to worry about. But it is very difficult to, face these things, especially if you're doing it by yourself. Understanding that, support is everything. And if you are doing this by yourself, like, kudos to you. This is not an easy path to walk. And sometimes it can be painful, right? To face the things that have been controlling us, to face our fears and, maybe the decisions that we need to change. It's okay. But each day we take a step, we learn a little something new, we do something a little different, we seek understanding. That's the best we can do. So I hope this helps. I know I kind of just rambled off, but these are the exact same things that helped me in my practice. So I felt comfortable honoring my deities, worshiping my deities, and, working through these traumas in my own practice. So let me know if y'all have any questions. Drop a like, subscribe. I'll see you next time. Mwah.